With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
You've discovered your link to GoPowercat.com's Powercat Podcast. Now, here's your host, GoPowercat.com's Ryan Wallace.
Here on the GoPowercat Podcast, I am pleased to be joined by Kansas State star, future NFL prospect Wyatt Hubert. And Wyatt, I want to start by going backwards and talking a little bit about your recruitment for a second. You didn't wait, if my memory serves correct, you didn't wait very long to commit. I think you were first in your class.
Yeah.
Why the zero hesitation with K-State?
Yeah, well, I went to a lot of camps growing up. Went to the high school camps and multiple times. Had interest from other schools as well. But, after visiting Kansas State and just seeing the campus and the football program, and then being a local kid and being a homegrown, Kansas kid, only an hour down the street, I took a lot of pride in that. And, one thing I wanted to do was be a great player at Kansas State from the state of Kansas and kind of just motivate and inspire, other kids from Kansas that, want to play Division I football or even play at Kansas State. I just wanted to pretty much motivate and inspire them that they can do that as well. I had a goal, I had a dream. It was to grow up and play at Kansas State and be successful at Kansas State. And, through a bunch of hard work and dedication and commitment, I made that dream come true.
Did you ever feel like you were under-recruited? Because, I think you were clearly top 5 in the state, but I want to say you were top 30, top 50, depending on the scouting service at your position nationally. Mm-hmm. And yet, from at least what we knew publicly, still didn't seem to draw a lot of offers. Why was that?
Yeah, well, being from Kansas is definitely another challenge, not being a huge football state. There's been a lot of great athletes that I've played with or played against from Kansas that, were kind of under-recruited. But once you step onto campus your first day, high school's over, the stars don't matter anymore. It's all about what you do those next 4 to 5 years at that university that you choose to attend. And I just made the most of it. So definitely, that was definitely something that motivated me and definitely always had a chip on my shoulder when I was playing in my college career. Was it just K-State? Were they really the only ones that made an official offer? Yeah, Kansas State was my only offer. They were my first offer as well. I say other schools would offer too. I had a lot of interest from other schools like Missouri, Nebraska, KU, and Iowa State. Those are my other 4. But like I said, I was definitely made a clear decision that Kansas State was the school I wanted to be at. You arrived on campus with a buzz cut. You leave K-State. You leave K-State with like the full mane on the head. So, yeah. In a way, does that kind of like indirectly symbolize just how far you feel like you've grown in Manhattan? Yeah, the person I am today is a complete different person than I was when I stepped foot on campus. In January of 2017. I learned so much. Both in the classroom, on the football field. And I had so many people that I looked up to and that helped me get to the point where I am today. And, I had, a lot of different coaches, obviously, with the coaching change halfway through my career. So having a lot of coaches from 2 different staffs, definitely learned a lot and took in a lot from both of those staffs. I just applied everything to my game, everything to my mental side of the game. And, it was definitely super beneficial for sure. I'll skip ahead since you brought up the coaches to a question that I was going to ask later. But since you brought it up, you're going to enter the NFL having been coached by Bill Snyder, John Fabris, Blake Seiler, Chris Kleiman, Buddy Wyatt, Joe Klanderman. Mm-hmm. Are there any of those kind of 6 that maybe you just seem to identify or take the most from, or do you think you'll kind of carry on a mix of all 6? Yeah, I definitely carried on a mix from all 6. They all brought something different to the table, and I applied everything that they all taught me. But, the one that stood out the most to me was Coach Fabris, my second position coach. I had him as my defensive ends coach in 2017, 2018. The reason I say him is because he's been in the coaching industry ever since he was a GA. So he's been in like I said, he's been in the industry for 45, 50 plus years or somewhere around there, just a very long time. And just the knowledge that he had of the game and the things that he taught me in the film room were probably the most beneficial things that I could ever learn, that I did learn at Kansas State, and especially as a young freshman, my redshirt year, when I was developing a little bit, and then my redshirt freshman year. Just the things that he taught me mentally in the film room definitely slowed the game down, super slow for me. And that's the thing that allowed me to play fast and play physical. And, after they were let go halfway through my career, I still applied those things my last 2 seasons, the things that Coach Favre's taught me, because those things, like I said, were beneficial, and they always kept me slowing down the game and allowed me to play fast. Another
coach that I didn't mention, but obviously deserves some recognition as well as his entire staff, Chris Dawson, the strength and conditioning coordinator. How does one go from 250 at the end of your redshirt season to 270? I mean, I want to know, like, what nutritional tips do you have? What's your weight room secret to not only gain the strength and gain the bulk, but obviously stay lean and athletic enough where, when I talk to guys over the off season, they're calling you one of the biggest freaks on the roster. So, I mean, how does one do that, Wyatt?
Yeah, well, like you said, I got into Kansas State. When I first stepped foot on campus, I was probably anywhere between 240 to 245. Then my redshirt freshman season, I played around 250. I was the same height, I was like 6'3", but definitely, not physically filled out yet. After my redshirt freshman season, going into that off season, those winter workouts and spring ball, that was probably the most important time that I realized that I needed to transition my body from where it was at to becoming bigger, faster, and stronger. Credit not just to Coach Dawson, but the other strength coaches as well. And that was kind of just the mental aspect I had of myself was, I had a goal for myself, and it is to be the hardest worker in the weight room and to push myself more than any other of my teammates are pushing themselves. And don't get me wrong, I had a lot of guys around me that pushed themselves super hard, but I took it as a challenge personally to push myself harder than all my teammates around me. Credit to Drew Wiley too. We were rack partners for a long time, and he's probably, me and him go head to head on, I'd say hardest worker, our biggest competitor, and the toughest guy on the team throughout my career. And having those half of us on the same exact rack, we were pushing ourselves to our max limits every single lift and every single run and every single drill. And, like I said, credit to him, he was bigger than me, so he probably did lift a little bit more on me on certain weights, certain lifts. But that just pushed me to get to the point where he was at. So it was honestly, that transition in the weight room after my redshirt freshman season, that was my biggest transition. And to answer your question, because I pushed myself so hard and I pushed myself to my limits. And, and the gains I had from that were super beneficial and super crazy. Being here right now, I never would have thought I'd be, at 263-ish and having 17% body fat. I never would have imagined that, coming into Kansas State as a freshman. But like I said, with a lot of, good coaches around me, a lot of good teammates like Drew, I was definitely pushed to my max potential, and I definitely got the gains that I wanted.
So would you say you're an equal balance of clean eating with the weight room, or would you say you kind of eat whatever you want and then you kind of trim that off in the weight room, or where does the balance lie, I guess, for you?
Yeah, well, obviously bodies change as you get older. And, even in my career, my redshirt freshman year, I could eat whatever I wanted, however much I wanted. And I was always 250. I never gained or lost weight. So it wasn't really something I had to worry about. But, once I got older, once I got to my redshirt sophomore season, my junior season, then nutrition became a lot more important to me because, I was getting to that age where the things that I did put in my body did have an effect, whether it's positive or negative. I wasn't an 18 or 19-year-old kid anymore. I could just eat whatever he wanted and go out and just perform the same way. Like I said, going into my redshirt sophomore year and junior year was when I really started to tone in on that and take it a lot more serious.
I seem to remember the Mississippi State game from, 2018 as kind of being your, if you want to call it, your coming out party on the big stage. But, is there a moment that you seem to recall where you were going, I can do this and I can be, this damn good, whether it was in a game or a practice? What was kind of the light bulb moment where you went, okay, like, not only am I going to be a college football player, but like, I'm going to be a damn good college football player and go to the pros?
Yeah. When I first got to Kansas State, I think the player I am today is based solely off of three guys that I in my college career going against: Dalton Reisner, Scott Franz, and Nick Holtmeyer. Those three guys are obviously super talented tackles. And ever since I stepped onto campus, like you mentioned earlier, I was an early enrollee. So my first spring ball was technically my senior year of high school. So I stepped onto campus, and right away, as soon as we started practice, I was going up against those three tackles. And going up against someone who's a lot more experienced, a lot more talented than you, that just boosts your game and your talent level so much at a quicker pace. And, just got to, like I said, just going up against those three guys made me so much better. And, I always kind of, I never doubted myself, but I kind of always underlooked myself. No matter what I did that was successful or good, I never saw it as good enough. But credit to Dalton and Scott and Nick, they always told me, you're going to be a really good player. You have a lot of potential. You're one of the most talented defensive ends that we've gone against. And just hearing those things from upperclassmen and from those leaders definitely gave me confidence and boost confidence that I needed. Like I said, I give credit to those three guys for making me the player who I am today.
How long did it take before you were, would you say, competing against Dalton? I mean, for a while there, was it just kind of like a ragdoll situation? He just seems like, because not only was obviously he great at Kansas State, but now we're seeing just how valued he's become in the league. So I can only imagine, like you said, being a redshirt freshman or whatever and having to go against Dalton Reisner. I mean, it would be easy for your confidence to get real low real fast.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. There was definitely a ragdoll moment for sure, especially my redshirt season. When Coach Snyder was here, no matter how good you were, no matter how talented you were, you're going to be on scout team, and 95% chance that you're going to redshirt your true freshman year, which I had no problem with that. I definitely took advantage of it and used it as as much of a developmental year as I could. But going up against Dalton every single day in practice and him being the player he is, that made me so much better. He showed me things as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old freshman that a lot of freshmen weren't getting exposure to. So when I did, get older, my redshirt freshman year, my redshirt sophomore year, I had already been through the fire. I had already, gone up against talented tackles. So I was definitely ready and prepared for that moment. And like you said, I give credit to him for preparing me for that moment. And, going against him, we were both super competitive people. Play with a chip on our shoulder. And, Dalton played hard every single snap. He played the same way in practice Monday through Thursday that he played on Saturdays. And just going up against a guy like that, that definitely trickled down onto me and trickled down onto my career as well. Yeah,
and he's one of those guys that would kind of eat at you as a competitor too, because he's like so nice that, you want to like hate him, but he's not like a trash talking type of guy. So I can imagine that, that would be something that, you want to dislike him to make it easier to go against him. And yet he just wasn't that type of guy. But moving to 2020 though, I wanted to ask, before we talk about a little bit about the season, the Von Miller Pass Rush Summit. How cool was that to get invited to it? I know obviously since it was virtual, it was maybe not ideal as it would have been in a normal year, but what kind of things did you learn? Who did you learn from? That sort of thing.
Yeah, it was definitely a blessing to be able to get the invite to participate in that Zoom call. It was probably 2 to 2.5 hours long, just of the best pass rushers in the NFL talking about what they do or how they do it or when they do it. And that was super beneficial because, I applied that to my game. And, I really like to compare myself to guys who are the same height and weight as me because it makes it just a little bit more realistic. So for example, we'd be in that Zoom call and we would just randomly call someone out. So they'd say, Joey Bosa, take us through this pass rush, why you did it, how you did it, and just explain details of, how it worked. And then they would, talk through it, the small details. And it's crazy because I learned so much just about pass rushing itself just within those 2 or 2.5 hours. It's all about details. It's all about what the tackle does, how he sets, and how to combat that with your moves and your movement. So being in that was super beneficial for me, and it's such a blessing. And, being on the same Zoom call with 20 of the best pass rushers in the NFL was something super cool.
Who did you feel like, was there anybody that you identified with, or maybe a guy that you could just tell was, I don't know, more into it than another, maybe got into more detail, somebody that you really seemed to grasp more than another?
Yeah, I'd say they're all equally pretty involved, and they all definitely took it seriously. They all had to talk. They all had to describe at least one, move that they did on a certain play. So they were all very involved. Obviously, Von Miller being the leader of the whole, Zoom call, he was the most involved, and him definitely being, the guru of pass rushing. So he had a lot of tips and a lot of key pointers, and I just took so much from all those guys.
As you kind of have had a little bit of time to reflect on your career in Manhattan, what do you think you'll remember most fondly? Like, is there a game or a moment as an individual that is the type of thing that you'll tell your kids and your grandkids about?
Yeah. Being at Kansas State for 4 years or 4.5 years, I had a lot of good memories. We had a few down years and a few up years when I was there. So, we went through a lot of adversity and we went through a lot of successes. Probably the most memorable memory that I take with me was in the 2019 season when we beat Oklahoma at home. They're obviously ranked number 5 in the nation. And that win was so sweet, and it was just super cool to be a part of. And, obviously had a big game, had a lot of good stats in that game. But the main thing that I took away from that game, and the thing that I just loved, was all 11 defensive players, all 11 offensive players, and all 11 special teams players. Every single guy on that field. Talk about a game where everyone came together and played as a team and had the same goal in mind, and all achieved the same goal. That's what's special about football. It's such a team game. And it takes, 11 individuals on the field to come together and all do their job and responsibilities to be successful. And, obviously we were going up against Oklahoma. They had a super explosive offense. But, we pulled it out and we got the win. And like I said, the thing that was so sweet from that is because we played as a team.
Is that the opponent that you would say that overall, maybe not just you, but the locker room in general just seems to get up for the most? I'm curious, is it – fans, I think, would probably say it's KU, and maybe as a local, Sunflower State guy yourself, it might be KU. But it just seems like everybody I talk to, there's so much of a passion for Oklahoma, and I didn't know if there's something deeper to that on the field. If they trash talk a lot or something, or is it just as simple as just wanting to beat the big boys?
Yeah, well. Me personally, I prepare the same way as I prepare against any other team. Whether it's our first 3 non-conference games or if it's against a big team. But definitely playing against the big teams like Oklahoma or Texas or the big boys. Definitely you approach that game with a different chip on your shoulder for sure. I do personally. I just feel like I have something to prove in those big games, and making big time plays in those big time games makes you a big time player. So that was definitely something that we all aim to do. There's on our roster, there's a lot of guys from, different states, and, everyone plays for the Kansas kids when we play KU, and kind of the same approach, all the guys from Oklahoma that are super talented on our team that, didn't get offered by Oklahoma. They took that personally as well. So, all of us kids rally together, and, for example, when we're playing Oklahoma, we play for those Oklahoma boys.
Is there something deeper than just, a belief in being able to beat Oklahoma twice? Or would you say, without giving away game plans and stuff, or is there something schematically that you at K-State have figured out a way to beat Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley, specifically that offense? Because, nobody else seems to have been able to do it. And yet here's Wyatt Hubert, Joe Klanderman and company doing it twice.
For sure. Well, the coaches preach to us a lot of things at practice, just like how any other coach on any other team preaches. You need to play all 4 quarters, all 60 minutes, because that's what matters the most. And both of those games, we played all 60 minutes. And, for example, this last game we played against Oklahoma in the 2020 season, we were down 28-7 at halftime. And, Oklahoma was cashed out. They thought they had won the game. A lot of the leaders and a lot of the coaches on the team, we definitely preach to everyone on the team that, hey, we still have 30 minutes left of football. If the game was over, it'd be over, but we're only halfway done. And I think that's why we pulled it out, is because we played every single snap for all 60 minutes, all 4 quarters. And that's something that they didn't do. And obviously we trickled back into the game the third and fourth quarter, and we won on a last-second field goal, 138-35.
The Powercat Podcast will be right back.
The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/247 and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Must be 21 plus and present in Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, permitted parishes only, Massachusetts, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Wyoming. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700, or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, or call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York, or visit oasas.ny.gov/gambling. Standard text messaging rates apply. Sports betting is void in Georgia, Hawaii, Utah, and other states where prohibited.
Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
We now send it back to the Powercat Podcast.
Now, you had a chance to make it 3 in a row against Oklahoma, but obviously the NFL came calling. How close were you to maybe thinking about or really considering returning to K-State? And ultimately, what was the conversation that swayed you, or what was the ultimate decision on why you decided to go ahead and leave now?
Yeah. Well, a lot of factors went into it. And when I stepped on foot at Kansas State, I had a lot of goals, a lot of personal goals that I wanted to achieve. I always wanted to be a captain at Kansas State, and I always wanted to be a leader in a leadership role for the football program. Obviously wanted to get my degree. And, a lot of other things came with my career as well. I was there for 4 years, 2-time captain, 2-time first-team All-Big 12, freshman All-American. And then I graduated with my degree. So, I accomplished a lot of things at Kansas State. And I definitely, weighed the pros and cons of both staying and leaving. I got a lot of good feedback from my family, from my coaches, from my teammates. And I kind of just put together a plan on what's best for me, and, what's something that puts me in a position to be more successful. And don't get me wrong, it was tough to leave Kansas State a year early, especially with, guys like Skyler and Noah returning for their, COVID year, and Cody Fletcher, guys that were super invested in the program. But like I said, I weighed the pros and cons. I definitely feel like the pros of leaving definitely outweighed the pros of staying. And honestly, I was kind of just, matured a little bit, and I was ready to take the next step for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's something that fans have to keep in mind too, is that, it's not just another year of football, it's another year of being a college student, and,
exactly.
all the stuff that goes with the academic side of it as well.
Exactly.
As we talk to you now, you're back in Pensacola. You just gotten back from Mobile, Alabama, and the Senior Bowl. Let's talk a little bit about that for a second. What a cool experience that was, following in the footsteps of, Jordan Willis participating in that game, Dalton Reisner participating in that game. I'm curious maybe who the toughest guy you faced was, and was, there anybody that jumped off the page to you in practice or watching film and stuff of practices that, just really caught your attention from an NFL standpoint, and somebody you're going to watch closely in the draft?
Yeah, for sure. I was on the American team. We had 3 days of full padded practice leading up to the game. So we actually didn't face the national team until actually game day. So there was a lot of guys on the national team offensive line that I hadn't faced all week that I faced in the game. Some guys that really stood out to me from the game was a right tackle. His name's Spencer Brown, University of Northern Iowa. He's just a monstrous dude, super athletic and super quick for how big and tall he is. So he was one of the tackles that definitely stood out against me. But, I think they all stood out. They were the best offensive linemen in college football. Every snap, every rep you had to take, you had to bring your A game for sure. But, going back to the national team and talking about, those 3 days of padded practices that we had going up against my teammates, some offensive linemen that stood out for sure was, I think his name was Trey Smith from Tennessee. He played guard. There was a kid from Eastern Carolina. I don't remember his name, but he was super talented. And then all the tackles were super talented as well. There was 2 Texas A&M tackles that were there. Alex Leatherwood from Alabama, super talented tackle. And there's, like I said, they're all the best offensive linemen in college football. So going up against those guys, every single day leading up to the game definitely made me a better player. All those defensive linemen definitely made them better offensive linemen as well.
You mentioned that lineman from Tennessee, and I tweeted out a video from you earlier in practice in the week. You actually got the better of him on a rep. And I bring that up, though, because Matt Rule was coming over, celebrating with you, commending you for that effort. He's obviously a guy that I would imagine kind of knew you well coming in. So was it nice, kind of an added bonus to have, if you want to call him kind of a guy in your corner that just so happens to be your coach as well?
For sure. I'm trying to think of a comparison here, but, Coach Rule being at Baylor and being in the Big 12, at the same time that I was playing at Kansas State, so obviously playing against him, it kind of felt like a little bit when like a dad is a coach of a Pee Wee team and their son is on the team, and the dad and the head coach is obviously a lot harder on their own son than they are the other players. That's kind of what it felt like a little bit. Just because I was a Big 12 guy. I think I was the only, defensive lineman from the Big 12 on my team. I could be wrong, but I think I was.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So, it was kind of that feeling, kind of that vibe throughout the whole week of practice. I'd say he was a lot harder on me for sure. And, I'm thankful for that because he knew my potential and he knows how much potential I have. So, I give credit to him for, making me better in this last week.
Where do you feel like you fit in best after kind of a week at the Senior Bowl from a position standpoint? Because we saw you doing some stuff at the 3-tech, sliding a little bit inside, going against guards, coming outside, going against tackles like you would at K-State. But, just having been there, experienced it, having talked to agents, scouts, coaches, where do you feel like your future fits best?
My future fits best definitely on the outside. Definitely I talked to some teams, they want me as a 4-3, hand in the ground defensive end. But some other teams, want me as a 3-4 outside backer as well. No teams can really see me playing a true 3-tech. I obviously did that in practice and in the game because we had injury problems. A few guys got injured. I think 3 or 4 of the defensive linemen didn't play in the game. So obviously we accommodated for that, and a lot of the defensive ends had to play inside. I kind of just took one for the team. A few other guys did as well. I played obviously inside on third down my whole college career, but first and second down, on the run game, definitely never done that before on the inside. So that was super tough. Big change for me, taking on double teams from offensive guard and offensive tackle at the same time. Then me only weighing anywhere from 260 to 265. That didn't help much either, but it was tough. It was definitely a change. But we had to do what we had to do to accommodate for those injured guys.
Through the grapevine, maybe, have you gotten any indication on certain teams that could be interested, or teams that you seem to be hearing from more, or your agents have been hearing from more? And if not, maybe are there teams and schemes that just through watching the NFL that you wouldn't mind maybe playing for?
Yeah, well, after interviewing with all 32 teams, they would always ask, what's a question you have for us? And one question I would always ask them, I would say, do you guys run a 4-3 defense or a 3-4? And, they're the same answer every time. They said, well, we do a little bit of both. So there really wasn't a true 3-4 defense or 4-3 defense that every NFL team runs. It's definitely a combination of both. And I'm definitely, getting a lot of, there's some teams, about 5 or 6 teams that really like me and I'm really high up on their board. They've asked me to keep that confidential for whatever reasons. I don't know why, but I'm definitely, definitely interested in a lot of teams. They're interested in me as well.
More AFC or NFC? Can you tell us that much?
Honestly, I don't know, to be honest. I'd say it's a mixture of both, probably 3 and 3.
Okay. Yeah. Did you grow up with a favorite team? Like, were you a Chiefs guy or?
Yeah, my families are Chiefs fans. I mean, I root for the Chiefs, don't get me wrong, because they're an hour away from my hometown. But growing up, I wasn't a huge Chiefs fan. I rooted for them. But I followed the players. Being a good football player in college and in the NFL was something I always wanted to do. So I had a lot of role models, a lot of guys I looked up to in the NFL when I was a kid. And I followed players rather than teams in the NFL growing up.
Well, let's finish just with kind of your thoughts on K-State and the season coming up for the Wildcats. What do you feel like is in store for this 2021 roster, knowing the guys that they have coming in, knowing the guys that you've seen develop on scout team and the guys that they have returning too?
Yeah, well, the thing I'm most excited about, I'm excited about a lot of things actually. The first thing I'm most excited about is the offense. Skylar's coming back, Johnson's coming back, and, the whole offensive line is returning as well. Plus having Deuce Vaughn with the season that he had, seeing him grow through winter workouts and spring ball and summer workouts leading up to the 2021 season. I'm excited to just see how much better he gets from what he was already, of how talented he already was. Then obviously, returning Malik at wide receiver and a few other wide receivers as well. Just super excited to watch the offense because they have a lot of potential to be really successful and really explosive. The second thing that I'm most excited about is to watch Khalid Duke going into his true junior year. I kind of took him under my wing a little bit. These last 2 seasons I played with him, kind of helped him mature a little bit and transition from high school to college. Taught him a lot in the film room, on the field, but mainly just taught him the mentality of being a good player. It starts in your mind on the choices you make and what you choose to do on and off the field. I hope that I left a good positive note for him to follow going into his junior season. But like I said, I'm super excited to watch him just because of the potential he has. And he was a freaky athletic guy, super long and lengthy. He's about 6'4", 6'5", so he's a tall dude. So a lot of potential at defensive end, so I'm ready to watch him.
Who do you expect maybe, we know about a lot of the names that you mentioned, but is there anybody kind of behind the scenes that fans just don't know about yet that you expect to have kind of a breakout season, maybe if it's not this fall, maybe within the next 2 years?
Yeah, for sure. Well, fans know who this is, Cody Fletcher. I say Cody because talk about a guy who goes to work every single day and one of the toughest, mentally and physically toughest guys. And I've played against, and him being middle linebacker and mainly playing Mike, but, he plays Will as well. But, he's been a backup the last 2 years of his career. And, behind Elijah and Eli, and last year Daquan. So, but this is his year to step up, and this is his year to, show the K-State fans and, prove to the program that he's an elite player. Just from watching him in practice and seeing how, knowledgeable he is as a player, he kind of reminds me of when I, played with Trent Tanking, kind of the, same guy, same replica, same body type, style, same style play, and definitely, the same knowledge of the game. And that's why I'm excited to watch him because, Trent left a mark at Kansas State for being, a successful linebacker. And I think Cody's going to do the same thing as well, especially going into this season being a starter.
All right, last but not least, when will we see you back in Manhattan? Are you the type of guy that you feel like will kind of make an annual pit stop through K-State as long as the NFL schedule, allows it? Do you feel like you'll be a regular back in Manhattan? And when you do come back into town, what's the one place or one thing that you're gonna go back and eat that you're gonna miss the most?
For sure. Well, I'm here in Florida for the whole month of February, and I'm actually going to be back, the beginning of March. We're pretty lucky for Kansas State. We always have our pro day pretty early in the month of March, and we're always one of the first pro days in all of college football. So pro day is on Tuesday, March 9th. So, it's coming up only about a month away. So like I said, I'll be down here for the whole month of February and just a few days in March, and then I'll head back up to Manhattan and prepare in Manhattan for 4 or 5 days to get ready for pro day. And then, after pro day is over, so obviously with COVID, a lot of things are different. There's no personal workouts, top 30 visits in the NFL, all that is straight canceled. So that's usually what you do in the whole month of March and April is visit, the programs and the facilities in the NFL. And obviously, like I said, do private workouts for teams. All that is canceled. So I'll just be in Manhattan, after pro day is over for March and April, just staying in shape. And, I'm super lucky because, I love Manhattan. I miss it a lot. And, being there for 2 more months before I get drafted in the NFL and leaving, going out to a big city, definitely going to cherish that moment for sure. But to answer your second question, the one place I'm really looking forward to is either Early Edition or the Chef. 2 of my favorite breakfast places. They have their differences for sure, but I love both of those. Can't wait to be back there.
There you go, Wyatt Hubert, a breakfast guy. So if you're ever back and you want to see Wyatt Hubert in the flesh, you need to be up and at him early at one of those 2 spots for breakfast. I like it. Yep. Wyatt, thank you so much for joining us here on GoPowercat.com. Wish you the best of luck with the upcoming pro day. And again, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Ron. I appreciate it.
Powercat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.
The calendar has flipped, which means it's time to join us on Fantasy Baseball Today, part of the CBS Sports Podcast Network. Join Scott White, Chris Towers, and me, Frank Stanfield, 3 times per week in January to kick off our 2024 Fantasy Baseball Prep. We're talking rankings, strategy, tiers, prospects, mock drafts, and everything in between. Make sure to download and follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, and everywhere else podcasts are found.